copying other people is what's keeping you stuck, and it's doing more harm than good to you and your creative brain. And I know what you're thinking, oh, Trevor, why would we try to reinvent the wheel? Why don't we just copy what's working and use that and continue doing that? And here's the problem with that whole process, is that when you copy someone else, like for example, you look at a YouTube video that went viral, you copy the observable signals of what you think was the golden lever to make it work. You copy the thumbnail, you copy the title, you copy the hook, you copy some of the actual content, maybe you redistribute it and sort of use it in a different way, but fundamentally you're copying the strategy and the tactics that you think made it work. And so what this does is that you never understood why it worked fundamentally in the first place. And therefore you can't use those insights for other things in your business or your content journey or your life, right? So if a client asks you, why am I doing this specific thing? You wouldn't be able to explain that at a deep level when it's pressure tested. And so this is the problem with the business coaches. It's sort of transferred into other categories, the business coaching, the content coaching. What a lot of them are telling you to do is that they're telling you to, just look at someone in your niche that's doing really well and just copy their stuff. And what does this do? They literally get good at copying. They get good at stealing without understanding what fundamentally worked in the first place. And so later in this video, I'm going to give you an insight as to what I do to understand complex ideas at a deep level so I can articulate them in an easy to digest way. And so it's interesting, AI is sort of contributing to this thought process of copying because it's reinforcing that type of behavior. It does the thinking for you. You prompt it and it literally does the analysis for you so that you can just copy it and redistribute it because it did all the work. And so what we want to do, and this is directly transferred into your creative ability because you want to have a competitive advantage against everybody else. And how do we do that? When everybody converges on the same strategy, they're doing the retention editing, they're copying the hooks, they're literally just converging all on the same strategy. And what happens is when something becomes abundant, it makes something else scarce. And generally, the scarce thing hides behind the abundant one. And so this is why I'm making videos like this. I have no teleprompter, I have no notes. And how am I able to articulate ideas? How do I think of these complex ideas, and how do I sort of digest them and make them easier and simpler to understand? Because even Einstein says if you're not able to communicate a topic simply, then you don't understand the topic yourself. And this goes to show with everybody in the content space right now. They're just so prioritized on the creator, how to become a creator, how to do this, just copy what's working. And it does nothing for your understanding and you hit a dead end. And so the way I'm able to understand and learn faster than other people so that I can get that competitive advantage within the lane that I'm focusing on, the sort of boring style content where I can distribute my ideas and my thought process and my thinking and showcase that, because again, we're optimizing for a different lever than everybody else. I'm not out here trying actively to go viral. You'll look at my thumbnails, look at the actual content of this video. I'm not trying to go viral because that's not the metric that I base success on. What I base success on is money in my bank account. And you likely want to prioritize that too. Who cares about virality if it doesn't do anything for your life? And so that's the measuring stick that I'm using. And what do we need to do that? We need trust. And trust is time under attention. It's like building a muscle. You need time under tension, and sort of my thought of that is time under your attention, right? And so that's the principle that you want to use for your own content so that you can continue measuring by the right measuring stick, by the right ruler, okay? And so the way that I understand complicated ideas quickly and deeply is I use what's called the Feynman technique. And I sort of have a variant to the Feynman technique, but it's sort of like this 4 to 5 step process that I use. And it really all comes down to writing, which is like the foundation of communication in and of itself. Basically what I do is I'll write the topic, I'll take out a blank piece of paper, I'll write the topic of what I want to learn, and for yesterday's example, it was the generation effect. And so I'll write the generation effect, and then I write the question that I have on that topic that I want to answer, that I want to talk about. And so the question would be like, what does the generation effect, like how does the generation effect work so I can increase my understanding on complicated ideas and distribute them in an articulate way so that my audience can understand it better? Okay, and so like that's just an example. And basically what I would do from there is I would write everything that I know about that topic off the cuff of my brain. Like I did no outside research. I did nothing other than trying to understand and write out what I think I know about the topic. And you can go in so many different directions here. You can pull in outside ideas. You can go into your childhood and how you think the generation effect shaped your belief and your memory and your understanding. And so you can go in so many different directions when you're writing this out. It's not like you have to solely focus on what you think that idea is. You can use outside variables to contribute to make that idea stronger. And so what happens when I do this is we basically get stuck on the why. And that's sort of what I'm looking at as the signal to conduct outside research. And this is where we actually use AI. And so when we use AI in this manner, what we basically do is use it as a librarian to find us the books, find us the articles, find us the information. That way we can answer why the generation effect behaves in the way that it does. And the librarian, the AI, will pull up the sources, and then we basically go through those sources and we're looking with a filter. We're looking to answer the question of why this thing behaves the way it does. Why does it do this specific thing? Why does this thing occur? And so we get that information and we write it onto the end of that sentence, okay? And so once you understand that, then you take out another blank piece of paper or you go down on the sheet, and what you do is you'll write out what you think it is in a simpler way. And so you basically try to teach it to yourself simply, okay? And so you're writing out, the generation effect is the principle of blah, 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 right? And you go through the process of writing it out and how it relates to content creation, your memory, your understanding of complex ideas, and how you can simplify them and all that stuff. And so you're basically doing what it is doing, right? So the generation effect is basically your ability to remember information is based on generating the idea yourself versus reading it somewhere. And so you can remember ideas stronger by generating the idea itself. And you're not like, the writing is the best mode of generating, and so therefore it's going to be the best memory capability so that you can reference it when you talk off the cuff on your videos like this. And so when you're writing it out and you're explaining it in very simple terms, you want to really audit what you're saying. You want to go into the definitions. Like if you use a bloated term, you want to isolate, like, why did I use this bloated term? Let's understand it at a deeper level. Okay, and so from there, what I'll do is then I will step away from the piece of paper and I'll talk to myself and explain it to myself. And basically what this does, it's sort of the teaching aspect of it. And so when you can articulate that concept and explain it like you're talking to a fifth grader, right? That's when you understand it. And if you don't, if you're in that third step of like trying to write it simply and you get stuck on the why again, that's when you go reread the source, okay? And then you basically do that again, okay? And then you talk to yourself about it, or you explain it to someone else and you try to teach them about it. And that is the process that I like to use to understand and learn concepts quicker, but also remember them better. And so if you contrast that process, right, of actually understanding this stuff versus copying someone else, you have something to carry with your content or with fulfilling for your clients and understanding the actual problem and how things work fundamentally. And this is a competitive advantage when you create content yourself. Okay, when someone asks you in the DMs about a specific topic, you can articulate it. When someone pressure tests you on a call, you can articulate it. Okay, whether that be on a sales call or, with your clients. And this is why it's a competitive advantage within the fulfillment side, but also within the content itself, because everybody is converging on that same strategy. They're trying to copy the visible signals of what works for someone else, and it's literally like game theory. Everyone converges on the strategy, and the gains get competed away. Everyone looks identical. Everyone looks the same. So there's nothing that's going to make you stand out yourself. And so that's the core thing, and this is a skill that you build over time. This isn't something that is like you just do the Feynman technique and then all of a sudden you understand things incredibly well instantly. Like, this is something that you have to get better at and continuously growing and pursuing and progressing within that aspect. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I love topics like this because I love learning complicated ideas and being able to articulate them and communicate them in the best way possible for you guys, so you can actually get nuggets to use in your own life and your own content and get a competitive advantage for your own business, right? Like, we're all we want to measure things by trust and by the money in our bank account, not by views, not by likes, not by even comments. I mean, comments from a tactical perspective are, something that we'd want to dive into and really just not neglect. Like, there are some things within content and data that we can gather as insights to make informed decisions so that we can optimize those metrics and and basically accelerate the trust and accelerate our book calls, accelerate the conversations that we have so that we can make more money, so that we can eventually have the life that we truly desire. And so hopefully this was a helpful experiment, and I hope you use the Feynman technique because it's helping me considerably with these videos. This is day 9. I'm continuously trying to get better at these videos, and I'm obsessed with it, right? It's like, I truly believe that I am the best, therefore I'm going to pursue it like nobody else does. And yeah, hopefully you carry that. So I will see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.